Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting now. Essentially, we're right on
Oh yeah,
time today.
I should get my voice recorder up. Sorry, sound recorder.
Sound recorder. Yeah.
Let me mute.
Your audio sounds better today. I don't know if you changed anything.
I changed the monitor. I might have moved one or two plugs around, but
It's
it's
less.
still a
Yeah.
mystery. Yeah,
Yeah.
who
Weird.
knows?
Fair enough.
All right, recorder is here. What am I on? Okay, let me get the notes up. Oh, actually, I probably have broadcast on, so let me. Yeah, it is on noise removal. All right, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 311 for May 12th, 2023. Hey everyone, Deanna Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we'll be breaking down the Windows 11 Moment 3, which I guess is dropping any moment. Oh, that was a terrible one. But we'll go through what's new in there, what to expect. Google had an interesting week. We'll be mostly focusing on the Pixel Folds, comparing it to the Duo, talking about whether or not we're going to get one. And then we'll segue, of course, into Google's AI announcements. We won't go too deep in it, but we'll compare it a little bit to Bing Chat and also some other Bing Chat minor news. Asus had a big week with the ROG Ally, their new handheld gaming rig, which is set to compete against the Valve Steam Deck. Talk about the pros and cons of that device, when you can get it, and also whether or not we'll be getting one of those. And then, we'll go into. I didn't post this review yet. It's done. I just got to format it, which just takes forever, but I'll get it posted on Friday after this podcast. The Dell 6K monitor review. Dell has a new monitor that just came out this week. We got one of the first samples. It is a 32-inch 6K display. And perhaps more interesting is it has a built-in 4K 8-megapixel HDR web camera, which I'm actually using right now for this podcast. Now, I am blurring the background with NVIDIA Broadcast, so that's why I got some extreme blurring going on there. But in terms of, actually, I'm going to turn down that blurring. It's a little bit extreme. In terms of quality, though, this is one of the best web cameras I've used, period.
It's incredible how nice it looks.
Yeah, like they need to rip this thing out, sell it by itself to replace their webcam that came out like 2 years ago, which I was not that impressed with, because this is a really cool webcam. And yes, Zach, it has Windows Hello built in too.
Woo!
I mean, they just nailed all this. So I'm very excited about this display, but we'll go through all that and when and where you can get one and all that kind of jazz. How are you doing on this fine Friday, Zach?
I am not too bad. We've had pretty lame weather this week, so nothing to report. Though I hear it's going to get better for us.
Yes, I was giving Zach, I'm able to provide his forecast for him since I have his weather right now. Yes, it's very beautiful right now, nice and cool, dry. Of course, I spend most days indoors, besides when I'm walking the doggy, but that's okay. I guess let's get to it, though. We got a lot to go through with the Windows 11 Moment 3. So you wrote a pretty big article basically detailing all that's coming. When can we expect it? What should we expect? And what's going on with it?
Right, so yes, as we all know at this point, Microsoft has been updating Windows 11 much more often with new features, starting with the 22H2 release last year. They kicked off this continuous innovation thing, where essentially every few months they release a new feature drop, which is a collection of features they've been testing in the Insider program, grouped together, and then rolled out on a patch Tuesday of a particular month. So far, we've had two feature drops. They were known as moments internally, Moment 1, Moment 2. First was in October, the second was in February. And now we're coming up to the third moment, Moment 3, which we're expecting to be done / maybe even begin rolling out later this month. I was originally told sometime in May or June, so we're in that time frame now. Within the next couple of months, this third feature drop should begin rolling out to users. And just like the first two, they will be bundled with Patch Tuesday, so it's not an optional update for end users. Enterprises can configure to not have the features enabled, but they are all bundled with the security update that rolls out on Patch Tuesday. So what is new with this release? So as I said, it's a collection of all the things Microsoft has been testing in the Insider program. Not everything, I should keep in mind. There's still stuff in the Insider program that's for a later release. But basically, the TLDR for Moment 3 is it's not as big as Moment 2, in my opinion, but there are still some nice improvements here. So top of the billing list here is an updated widgets board layout and pinning experience. So Microsoft has been testing this new layout where the MSN feed is on the right, and then you've got your widgets in a vertical list on the left in the widgets panel. That appears to be shipping. I actually don't know if I like this more than what it was before, because at least before you could bury the MSN news feed by placing all your widgets at the top. You can't do that anymore. The widgets are now forced to the top alongside your widgets. So that's sad that you can't do that anymore. But that looks to be shipping. And there's also a new pinning experience, which just makes pinning individual widgets to your widgets panel easier. There are also new animated taskbar weather icons. Weirdly enough, the widgets button / weather button on the taskbar was the only system icon to not have animations. You know, start, task view, search. All the other ones have like little animations when you click on them. Weather didn't, but now with this update it will, which is kind of cool. The Bing chat button in the search box will now be an actual button. So instead of clicking on the icon and then being taken to Windows Search, which is how it currently works, clicking on that icon will actually launch you into Edge and take you straight to Bing chat now. So basically bypassing a step, which is kind of nice as well. The biggest change, the biggest addition for me, 2FA code recognition in notifications. This one's a lifesaver. If you have to use 2FA codes frequently, you're going to love this. Now, with this release, when you get a 2FA code in a text message, if you're syncing through phone link or in an email or in a chat app that you're running on Windows, in that notification will be a dedicated copy 2FA code button. So instead of having to manually type out the code before the notification dismisses, hit copy, you've got it to the clipboard, Control V, paste, you're good to go. Very similar to how it works on Android and iOS. Finally, that's coming to Windows as well. And then generally lots of just quality of life updates. I won't go through the whole list here because it's a lot of smaller stuff. Things like glanceable VPN status icon in the taskbar, USB 4 settings page, access keys and file explorer, new presence sensing settings, lots of small minor enhancements like that, which is why I say this update isn't as big as Moment 2 in my opinion, because Moment 2 had, the improved taskbar for tablet users and stuff. But there are some nice improvements here. There are some minor inbox app updates. We talked about it last week. The Photos app's getting a big update soon with slideshows, and the Spot Fix tool is returning. But yeah, lots of accessibility improvements as well. But yeah, that's basically the TLDR for the Moment 3 update. And like I said, we hear that should begin rolling out towards the end of this month or sometime next month. Well, I think it might begin rolling out as an optional update by the end of this month, and then it'll be rolled into the June Patch Tuesday, which is, what day is that this month? Let's have a look. Next month it will be the 13th of June, so keep that date in mind. But yeah, that's Moment 3. Dan, are you excited for the stuff coming in Moment 3?
I like the 2FA code recognition and notifications. I think that's important. Nice. I do use phone link all the time, and so I think that's a definitely an annoying thing. 2FA is super important, and you want to reduce friction as much as possible for people using it. So I think that's a really good move there. I'm a sucker for new animated taskbar weather icons. What can you say? Yeah, I don't know. You're right. There's not a lot going on here. Settings, search is faster. Okay, new presence sensing settings. That's kind of interesting for people who have modern, more high-end laptops with human presence detection. It's nice that they're building that stuff into it right now. Sometimes it's reliant upon either Intel software, Intel's the one that usually originates this technology, and then OEMs kind of modify it. A company like Lenovo will put it into their Vantage software where you can then go turn it off and adjust it and all that kind of stuff. So it sounds like sort of like the image blurring for the smart camera stuff. They're starting to put that natively into Windows, which is a good sign, because that means that like that kind of hardware is going to be standard in laptops and PCs going forward, as it kind of should be, right? This is sort of, the new era of AI and making computers smarter and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they can, yeah, sure, they can get faster. The displays can get better. But I think at this point, that's completely anticipated as for every update for a new PC. The question is, how can you make them better devices? And I think things like when you walk in front of it, it knows you're there and it turns on and logs you in with Windows Hello without you ever touching it. I think is kind of neat. And likewise, when you walk away from the computer, it'll automatically lock it. Or there's other things too, like with the laptops. I know HP does this, where you're using the laptop, say in a public space, and someone comes up behind you and is kind of looking at your screen. It'll tell you, like, okay, there's a person behind you. A little notification will pop up. Like, not everybody needs that, but it's a nice thing to have. I mean, if you ever had to do like banking stuff or credit card stuff on a trip, sometimes you have to. You don't want to, but you have to. And then you're in public, and you got to be worried about information that's going to pop up. So I think these kind of things are kind of really nice. But yeah, it's sort of a minor update. Should we expect a Moment 4 as well?
Possibly. So I'm not too sure if Microsoft will. Okay, so they don't brand them as moments anyway. Internally, that's what they use, but externally, they don't call them anything. We're expecting a version 23H2 release this fall, likely September, October timeframe. And there's a few questions around that update. Will that technically be a Moment 4, or will that be a new version of Windows 11 and then a Moment 4 comes after that? Just like how Moment 1 came only a few weeks after 22H2 launched. We don't know. We also don't know how Microsoft is going to deliver 23H2. The Moment updates so far have been delivered via Patch Tuesday releases. They're cumulative updates. They're patches. They're not full build releases. Whereas the 22H2 release and the 21H2 release the year before it were full versions of Windows. They were full build upgrades. So they take longer to install and are, air quotes, more risky to install as well, technically. And we don't know if 23H2 will be that. 23H2 could be that, or it could be another patch type update that that's bundled with or enabled via an enablement package. They could go either way with it, because we've seen them develop Windows both ways, and I think the servicing method has been working quite well at moments. I think because the updates they don't take as long to install, they're not as big to download as well. It's a minor inconvenience to install them, whereas installing, it's the reason why I'm not in the dev channel on my main PC, because the dev channel does full builds, and every week downloading a full 3 gigs worth of bug fixes isn't fun. So and also that process to install the build, depending on how much you've got on your computer, it can take a while, right? If you've got loads of programs and data and stuff, it can take a while to migrate that to the new build, whereas you don't need to do that with the servicing update. So I'm personally hoping that 23H2 is a servicing update, because it's just easier for everybody. But it could go the other way. It could be a full build release, which there are benefits to doing that on Microsoft's behalf. It means that they get a clean base for future moments, Moment 4, 5, 6. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait to see regarding it. But yes, we are expecting another sort of feature release of some kind after Moment 3, likely towards the end of summer, early fall.
Got it. Cool stuff. Well, looking forward to that. And then, we can start halfway through 2023. Coming up to that Windows 12, maybe.
The Windows 12 stuff. Yeah, maybe. I feel like we've forgotten to say it quite a few times now, but I do want to also reiterate that when we talk about Windows 12, we don't know if it's going to be called Windows 12. For all we know, it could be the Windows 11 2024 update. That's Microsoft's decision to market it how they please. Technically, on a technical level, it will be the next major version of the Windows platform. The 2024 release is supposed to be based on a newer code base for Windows, not the existing Nickel or 22H2 release, which is what Windows 11 is currently running on. So, yeah, keep that in mind. We call it Windows 12 because it's just chronologically that makes sense. But, it's up to Microsoft how they plan to market it, and keep that in mind for when they turn around and call it Windows 11.1 and you go, I don't want to hear anyone saying, you said it's going to be Windows 12, because we actually said we don't know. That's what we said.
They should call it Windows 12, though.
I agree. They should call it Windows 12. And if they don't,
they should go back to every couple, 3 years maybe, come out with a new version.
Because and also there's so many benefits for Microsoft for doing that, being, it does that whole upgrade cycle thing again. With Windows 11, they're like, hey, new PC time. They can do the same with Windows 12 and Windows 13. It's just a good moment for Microsoft to be like, by the way, everybody, it's time to get a new PC, especially considering PC market right now dying. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a really good point, right? I mean, OEMs and PC makers obviously love it too for that reason,
Yeah.
as they get to do a rebranding thing. But it is a opportunity to get back to what we were saying before with the hardware stuff, to light up new hardware features natively in Windows and
Mhm.
highlight those sort of
Yeah.
as standard, sort of like what Intel does with its Evo standard, which is another really good program. Uh, but yeah, ARM is going to be, by the time Windows 12 comes out, right? ARM is going to be a much bigger deal, because then we'll have the Qualcomm Orion chipsets will be coming out around that time. I wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of co-launching around that same time. That'd be another good thing. A lot of hope riding on those Orion chips, obviously. I expect we'll get more information from Qualcomm on those later this year, including demos and actual numbers. But I think OEMs are already getting briefed on them, because the report came out a while ago that a lot of OEMs have basically committed to making devices for this. So I think you'll see with Windows 12 this kind of new push for ARM support. But then by then you'll also have AMD, and of course Intel should be at least on 14th gen, but probably 15th gen. And we're supposed to see them shift again some of their architecture to their new chiplet design. And I was kind of basically told or strongly hinted that this is where they're going to start to focus on efficiencies in the processor, because up to now the 12th and 13th gen have definitely been about power. So these new laptops are very powerful, but they're not crazy great on battery life. They're not necessarily worse than 11th gen, but they're definitely not better. The only benefit is they can kind of squeeze in bigger batteries, but that just kind of makes up for it. But so we should be able to see all this new stuff. Web cameras are obviously becoming super important. Audio is also becoming important. Display technologies and all this. We should be seeing more variable refresh displays. The Holy Grail one we're still waiting for is the one where the display can basically drop below 60 frames per second or 60 hertz, and so that it can really save battery life. So if you're just looking at like a static image, it could, really save there. And then when you're scrolling or moving around, it can ramp up to like 120 hertz. That's going to be really important too for this stuff. So yeah,
and
I don't know.
and if Microsoft wanted to maybe kick off a new form factor such as foldables on Windows, a
Right.
new Windows release would be a great starting point for that. Instead of just retroactively updating Windows 11, they could plan it all for a big product release known as Windows 12, for example, next year, and be like, hey, we're launching this new OS with this new form factor. Now's the time to jump on board. And also, if AI is a big thing right now. As we know, Microsoft is working on bringing AI to Windows. Does it? Are they going to just release that as an update to Windows 11, or would they rather a big bang new release, the AI release of Windows? I bet Windows 12 is known as Windows AI.
Yeah, I there's no reason why, like, that would be the obvious thing, right? They should definitely be leading into it. That's the other part too, right? Getting back to hardware, NPUs.
Yeah,
NPUs have become
yeah.
standard in like new hardware to really kind of leverage all this new technology, and that's another angle for them to sell. But yeah, having an operating system that is more AI focused is going to be really interesting. This idea that we've been talking about for years, this idea that Windows sort of like proactively predicts your behavior.
Right.
I mean, you already see it, right? Like it knows your working hours and when to apply updates. Laptops now know your working hours. And it reflects in the charging rate at the laptop, how it's going to be used. So these things are definitely getting smarter. And yeah, I really hope that they lean into Windows 12 as like the AI OS.
Yeah, definitely.
Sarah's asking, is Orion, and by the way, it's not Orion. They got to be fancy. It's Oryon.
Y is cool.
Yes. Is it the performance? So this is the Qualcomm ARM next gen chips. Performance targets comparable to current Intel CPU gen. I don't know what they're comparable to. We have no information. Yeah, I don't know. This is what we're going to have to wait and see. They're supposed to be pretty powerful, though. They're supposed to be able to easily compete with. I mean, put it this way: the Nuvia team publicly stated they're very confident they can beat Apple in terms of performance. Take that as you will. Will they deliver? That can mean a lot of things too. Getting back to like Intel. Intel could beat Apple on performance as well. it's the efficiency thing that they don't compete as well on. So maybe the Orion chip could, compete on performance, but can it compete also as well as efficiency? We don't know, right? So there's a lot to, this is where Qualcomm will brief us on and give us numbers, and we'll have to wait and see. And they'll put out one number and, comparisons, and then of course we'll get review samples eventually and, see if how accurate it is. But yeah, a lot of questions around that kind of thing, but a lot of hope on it too. So, all right, let's move on to Google. They had a pretty big week with their I/O event, which was very long.
It was.
It was like 3 hours, and it was just the first, I think, hour and a half was just focused on AI and software. Now, I will say, comparatively speaking, it was probably one of the most significant Google I/O events in many years.
Yes.
It was very important for Google to do this. We joked around weeks ago with Bard. They introduced it, and they got unfairly dinged for this, right? They put out a tweet and it showed Bard, and like in the video, it made errors that they didn't even catch, and they lost like 11 billion in market value or something, which is so stupid. But it's because they're the leaders in this area, right? They're supposed to be the leaders. And so the market reacted, and the market reacted this week where they showed off stuff. And I think they gained like 50 billion in market value or something like that through stock. So like the market and analysts liked what they saw. Now, what did they reveal? They revealed exactly what you would expect them to do, which is everything basically Microsoft announced last week, 2 weeks ago. They announced that they're doing as well. And it's the same thing, right? They're putting their AI into their Google Sheets and Docs and their online tools. Basically, their version of Office is getting, they don't call it Copilot. I forgot what it was. It was like another, it was like companion or something. It was another phrase that was very similar to what Microsoft's was, that they're calling it as a, they're not calling it Bard because that's a terrible name, but it is a similar name to whatever Microsoft is, they're calling theirs a Copilot and stuff like that. So it's a similar thing that's going to help you out. Yeah, it can help you create slides, and people, it was funny to watching. So I give Microsoft credit. Like when they did their first AI announcement, it was a small crowd, like a very small crowd, right? We were there, and it was just some restricted media basically. At Google I/O, it was like everyone, right? They had like an amphitheater filled up. And so it was funny because when Microsoft was announcing stuff, we're like, oh, neat, cool. And we're typing away and all that. And it was it was a very balanced presentation. But they're on stage like, and it'll help you put your slides together. And people are like, woo! And you're like, dude, come on. I mean, it's kind of cool, but like people were just going nuts over like, it's going to help you write an email. Woo! I don't know.
There was a lady in the audience who was screaming her head off. It interrupted a couple of the presenters a few times. The lady would scream, and they were like, "Oh," so, like it interrupted them as they were talking. She was so loud.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're a big fan. So, but yeah, so the question, of course, is I think we always knew Google was going to do this, right? I mean, there was like, why wouldn't they? They showed a lot in search too, how they're building out search and making it smarter, just like what Microsoft did with Bing. The question is, some of it is like in labs already. You can kind of sign up and test some of it. But the question is, it's like, how far along is it? It's one thing to sort of announce something. Microsoft's been pretty good about like announcing stuff and then it kind of comes out. Now, the Copilot for stuff for Office falls into this boat too. It's been shown off, but it's just been like renders and all this. It's not working code. So they have to deliver there as well. So the question is, when is this coming? But the market liked what they saw, and it's we ran a story this week, unfortunately, that at least with the available information we have, like from Statista and everything like that, it doesn't seem that Microsoft has really gained anything in market share for search, even with all this interest around Bing and everything like that. It doesn't seem to have made a single dent at all in the market against Google. Now, will that change going down the road? There's been rumors that Firefox may hook up with Microsoft and make Bing default. It's been rumors that Samsung may do this as well. That I would say is actually pretty significant, because if they can sort of, granted, people could still change this on their own, right? But a lot of people won't, and it's a good way to sort of slowly bump up those numbers. But yeah, that whatever lead Microsoft has had is slowly dwindling from Google. And despite the great effort that they've done, it doesn't seem like it's necessarily made a big dent, at least for search. That's technically kind of irrelevant, though. Bing was always like that. Bing is always their own search. They knew that it was never going to beat Google, but they are hoping to gain some market share. But it doesn't matter in the sense that, Microsoft 365, basically Office, is getting this. We just talked about, we hope with Windows 12 we'll get this. So they're putting AI in all their products, and all their products still sell very well. And that's the bigger picture for Microsoft in this area. But, for Google, it's search and ads, right? Like, there was even a rumor this week, or I'm not even sure it's a rumor, but it was more than that Google's finally cracking down on ad blockers on YouTube.
Yeah,
if you don't know, ad blockers will block YouTube ads, which steals revenue, obviously, from creators. Now they're apparently figuring out how to block that, so that you have to watch the ads or subscribe, right, to the YouTube Premium. And the reason they're doing that is because fundamentally Google is an advertising company, and ads have been hit hard with the economy, the way it's going and everything. That's their main source of revenue. So it makes sense that they're going to kind of crack down on that to drive revenue back up. And it seems kind of obvious, too, that they should do that. But so I don't know. We'll see. But so that was the AI stuff. I don't know. Was there anything that stuck out for you that was interesting about what they announced for software? Or in Android 14,
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second. The AI stuff in regards to search was interesting because their demo was quite. They presented it as the AI assistant exists on the search page right now with Bing. I guess Bing does that too, but it doesn't do that often. Some of the queries I search on Bing, it doesn't pull up the chat interface, for example. But
that's an option. You can go into settings and actually turn it on to make it on all the time. But yeah, what Zach's talking about, when you do a search and it gives you the results, and the right-hand side, they call it a knowledge panel. But so you'll still get a knowledge panel, which is like a summary of the information. And then above it, you'll see Bing chat will start summarizing and giving you an answer to your thing. And you can go into your settings. He's right. It only comes on sometimes, but you can actually make it come on all the time if you want to. So,
but Google was showing it that way, where you do a search and what it does is it pushes down the blue links, the traditional Google search results. It pushes those down and it gives you the AI answer at the very top, which I thought was very interesting because that severely de-emphasizes going to source material. And I'm curious how Google will handle that, because obviously this has been a criticism of Bing Chat as well. How Bing Chat sources stuff, that's great, but it's sourcing stuff's only one part of the problem. The other part is getting the user to click into those sources to give clicks or whatever to the source material, which most people aren't going to do. If they get their answer in the AI generated result, then they don't need to click into the source material, and that's going to be an even bigger problem when Google starts doing it, because Google is search. That's what people use to search the internet. As Dan was saying, Bing usage hasn't really gone up much. And I'm not surprised by that. I don't think many people are surprised by that. The whole thing was always going to be, we'll mess around with this AI thing in Bing until Google has it, and then we'll just use Google's. And I think that's what's happening here. And so now Google's doing it. That's when we're really going to see it affect content creators. So I guess we have to wait and see how they go about that and how they plan to.
There's been some documentation about how they're going to kind of give citations and everything. It's still not as clear as Microsoft's, but they sort of do have link outs. Someone's mentioning comment that the way they tied up Google search AI maps is something Microsoft falls short. I disagree a little bit. Someone mentioned when I do a search, I did basically the same search that they did on stage, asking about colleges that have an animation program, and then it asked it to map it out, and I was able to do that. And it Bing, that was one of the announcements, that Bing Chat can create graphs for you, so you can ask it to create a graph and it'll do it. It'll bring in images for you. It can bring in videos for you, the best relevant video, and it brings in maps. I asked it to do a map, and it brought up an image of the map and directions and all that.
Bing Maps is still a thing, right? It's just not a thing on mobile.
Yep.
which is a strange
Yeah,
choice, but
yeah,
sure.
yeah. No, it's still definitely a thing. Now,
Yeah,
I will concede that obviously Microsoft's limitations tend to be market, right? So I'm in the
yeah,
United States where they tend to have better performance of all this stuff. So if you're in a different markets, even UK, you might not be getting these things. But whatever they showed on stage, I was able to do was the same thing. So I didn't find that too impressive.
yeah,
But granted, they do have popular services, whether it's but even like YouTube, right? So Microsoft's now, if you ask it like, hey, I want to learn how to do this, it will go and search and it'll find the most relevant video and then bring that video to you into the chat thing. That was again part of the announcements last week, or yeah, it was last week. So they're doing a lot of the same stuff here, but
yeah. You
yeah,
know, I do want to also briefly talk about Android 14. I was surprised by the lack of AI features coming to the OS. I don't think they mentioned really any AI features coming to the OS. They
right.
did mention AI features coming to some apps. Gmail, for example, is getting the thing. Outlook's getting the ability to write emails for you, essentially. But
Yeah,
what's nice as well is the Messages app, the SMS Messages app, is also getting that functionality. So you'll never have to talk to your friends again. Just get an AI to do it, and they'll be none the wiser. But this is the kind of AI that I'm more interested in because the search stuff has
yeah,
been all fine and dandy. I haven't used it much. I don't find much benefit in it. I'm doing simple query searches, so I don't need the AI assistant there in Bing. Also, for me, it's quite unnatural to go to a search engine to do an AI related task for some reason. I just can't get that into my workflow, so I don't use it that much. However, AI in text fields and in apps that I use, that's going to be a game changer for me. AI in messages, for example, or AI in email, that's what I'm looking forward to. The ability to have an AI work for me in that setting rather than search. I don't need AI in search, but I do need AI in WhatsApp or AI in Telegram, because it would be great to be able to just reply to messages with one of the examples Google used was to write an email, they were all replying to an email. He wrote a really sort of like caveman like sentence, like congrats on promotion, happy for you, see you later, like, which wouldn't fly as an email, right, in a professional setting. But he asked the AI to do it for him, and it took that caveman sentence and turned it into an elegant sort of paragraph of conversation. That's where I think AI is really going to benefit people, which is why I'm excited for
sure.
Copilot in Office more than I'm excited for Copilot in Bing and
Yeah,
Copilot in Windows.
it's the little usage of AI. It's
Yeah,
not just like
absolutely.
I talked about before. It's not her, which I still haven't watched.
Yeah.
It's not this overarching like omnipresent, anthropomorphic AI that's you wake up in the morning and like, but we may get there someday. Maybe people want that, but it's gonna be like even in the they showed off photos and it's been around for a while with the pixels and their tensicores, the magic eraser, which is
Oh yeah.
fine. The magic, I use a magic eraser. It's okay. It's not. I'm not. It doesn't blow my mind when I use it. I'm like, okay, it does a pretty decent job. I could do definitely a better job in my Photoshop or Elements on my computer, but on the go, sure, it works on some things. Sometimes it turns into smudges and stuff. So, but that's going to only get better. Obviously, they use it with their camera stuff too and taking photos, and it works really well there. But that's where I think, yeah, AI is going to be a lot more interesting. And even there, the term AI is really more about machine learning, right? It's more about collecting data and using it. But yeah, it's all interesting stuff. But I guess we should just segue into the only cool thing that was showing off,
No,
which
no.
was
Uh,
they have the
Emoji
tablet.
wallpaper. I hope you're talking
Oh,
about.
the emoji wallpaper is the banger of the year. Yeah, they have wallpaper. You can create now wallpaper based on emojis. It was awful.
I
Just
cannot believe they
just
spent
awful.
about 5 minutes on that. I could not. That was a whole demo they did. Was like, oh yeah, let's create
That
an
was
emoji wallpaper. Actually, that's the only place where I remember AI being part of the OS. They did also show off being able to generate a wallpaper image using AI, which was I thought
Yeah,
was
they have
okay.
that weird thing where you can take a 2D image and then it like makes it 3D so that when
Yeah,
you like rotate the phone a little bit, it uses the gyroscopes and it creates kind of a 3D. And they had
funny
this
enough,
like
I'm pretty
little
sure.
girl and
Yeah,
I get
go
it. It was like it was supposed to be someone's kid. It was creepy looking though. I was like, I don't know if I want that. That looks strange,
I will
man.
say, I'm pretty sure Microsoft is working on the same thing for Windows tablets. I've heard that they're working on AI-based parallax wallpapers, so that could be a Windows thing
Sure.
soon. But it's coming to Android first, so there you are.
Honestly, we don't get emoji wallpapers. But yeah, they also finally showed off the Pixel tablet, which is hilarious because they announced that last year. By the way, so like,
Yeah,
when people give Microsoft guff for its hardware, which don't get me wrong, often well earned, but it's not like Google's out here crushing it either. They announced a very uninteresting kind of, it's a fine but uninteresting tablet last year, and now it's like this year they're like, all right, we're ready to sell it. It's just like, cool. Good luck against the iPad. But what makes it kind of interesting is it's effectively like if you bought a high-end Alexa device that has like a big screen on a stand in your kitchen. Yeah, it's that, but now you could just pop off the tablet, and that's actually kind of neat. I give them credit for doing something a little bit different, because this idea that like you can have a shared home tablet that can control your lights and do things, and it could show off photos, and just like an Alexa thing, as well as you can give it bark orders at it, or you can take it off and use a fingerprint thing to log in to one of your accounts on there, and everybody can have their own account and you can access your games. It's kind of a cool thing. Would I buy it? No. No, yeah. I have no use for it. A giant, an Android tablet is just very uninteresting to me. And I think if you have an iPad, there's probably no way in hell you're going to give it up. I think Apple should probably steal this idea because it's not too sophisticated. It's just what it is, it's a base that has a magnet on it that just sticks to it, and then also has a speaker built into it, and it rotates around, right? So it's not really too hard. Apple should definitely, if Apple does that with an iPad, it's game over. Like why, why would you even, that'd be way more interesting. But whatever, it's coming out.
I will say I do agree with the idea though, the concept being, and they said it on stage, and I was like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah. But a lot of people who own a tablet of some kind often doesn't use it often, but when they do need to use it, it's dead because it's just been sitting around. And this solves that by being, it's got a home to go to, and you dock it to the speaker. It's now useful as a different tool, as like a device for controlling lights or assistant-based tasks and stuff like timers and stuff in the kitchen, for example. And it's always charged, so it's always ready to go if you want to take it off and use it.
You can use it for Google Meet and video.
It's a good idea, but because it's Google making it, I don't want it.
Yeah, like I said, I give them points for at least just not making another tablet, because Lord knows when they make tablets or laptops, it just doesn't work out well for them. They also announced the Pixel 7a, which is $499. It's a good value. That's $100 cheaper than the Pixel 7.
Which I don't think is, because of that, I don't think it's good value, because I feel like $100. Yeah. I guess at that scale, $100 is quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, If you look at a $499 phone, and $100 probably does matter a lot.
But the problem is you can often find the Pixel 7 for less than retail, right? You can usually find it for $50, $75 off, and at that point, it's only a $20 difference or $25 difference between the 7A and the 7. I feel like it's a struggle to recommend the 7A when for $25 more you can get the flagship 7, which is a slightly bigger screen, made of better materials, has a better camera, right?
And I think the Coral version costs more for whatever reason.
But it looks cool.
Yeah, and the comparison was, I think the Samsung A54 is like $450. So it's still slightly cheaper. And this gets back to the whole thing with the Pixel line, which is Pixels are cool phones that only influencers tend to use, because Samsung is just so dominant, right? So it's like the Samsung A54, which a lot of people haven't really heard of, but it's their like $450 more affordable phone, right? It's going to have way longer reach because it's going to be in all the carrier stores. It'll be on huge discounts and trade-ins and all that kind of stuff, where the Pixels kind of struggle for that. They don't have really as much advertising. So all the hype Pixels get, they don't sell a ton. But then again, you could argue it's sort of like what Surface is supposed to be. They're not necessarily supposed to sell a ton. I will say, though, I think Google would like to sell more because the rumor was up until the Pixel 7, they really weren't selling a lot of the Pixels. But that's the 7A. I agree. I would just get the 7, but for some people, an extra $100. Should you get the 7 Pro? Even I always look at the 7 Pro like, well, maybe I will. But that's like $300 more. And now that's like, to me, that's a big jump in price. And what do you get? The telephoto lens, which I just do not use. The S23 Ultra, arguably the best zoom lens you can get. I've never used it. Yeah, I mean, I know it's cool to play with. You do that thing where it's like, here's the ultra wide, and you do that, it blows people away. But that's all you use it for. Maybe some people do use it. I can see if you're like traveling and stuff like that, and you want to, but I don't ever use telephoto. Ultra wide, I definitely use. And it has a 120 hertz display versus 90 hertz, which, yeah, I would prefer the 100. This one I do like with the Samsung is the 120 hertz display. I think is better, but I don't know if it's worth the $300. But that gets us, I guess, to finally the Pixel Fold. So no mystery around this device.
Whole thing did leak. Yeah, sorry, Dan, let's step away.
My neighbor decided to use his trusty leaf blower. I hate leaf blowers. They should just ban those. Period. They are banning them, apparently. A lot of communities are banning them because they suck. But anyway, the Pixel Fold, no mystery around this device because everything leaked out, including the price, which it is $17.99. At least that's the starter price. It goes up to, I don't know, was it $18.99 or something like that?
It's not cheap.
Yeah, so that's for the white version. If you want the black version, that goes up to the higher price tag with the more storage. It is not cheap. You can do trade-ins through Google through their pre-order, which is now live, but you can only trade in one device. And it's kind of funny. Like I was like, well, maybe I'll trade in this S23 Ultra. Sorry, Samsung. No, they won't even take it. But it's like too new.
I hate it when they do that.
It's too early.
Yeah,
and like Richard Devine, one of our writers, made the comment. He's like, they probably don't want to pay. It's too much money, and that's probably true. Actually, the most you can get, I think, is $800 back for like an iPhone 14 Pro. They'll give you $800. If I traded in my Pixel 7, I think it was like $250.
Oh, that's
but
rubbish.
Like and so like if I could trade in multiple devices, I would have probably jumped in on this, but just one. And so I can't even trade in the S23, so I don't know what else I would trade in. I would have to go sell things, which is a pain, and I'm lazy. So as of now Best Buy will be getting it, and Best Buy has better trade-in programs. I don't know if they can do multiple trade-ins there either, but they should be getting theirs soon as well. That said, at this current time, I'm not planning to buy the Pixel Fold. It's just, it's running the Tensor G2 chip, which is fine, is what the Pixels are using right now. But you're saying the G3 is coming out like in the fall, and the battery's not very big on it, and it's a Gen 1 and all this kind of stuff. We don't know, Michael Fisher, Mr. Mobile, has a great hands-on video, and he's like, how's it going to hold up? What happens if it breaks? What's their return and fix policy going to be? Because Samsung's has been actually pretty good with their devices, although they do break too. So a lot of questions around it, but I don't think I can justify the price, but we'll see. But it is a lot of money. I mean, it is like a laptop. So, but you pre-ordered one.
I have pre-ordered it. I'm not too sure if I'm going to hang on to it yet. I do want a Pixel Fold. There's nothing about the device that I don't want. The design of it, I think, is right up my street. The Galaxy Fold, I could not get used to. I hated the aspect ratio, the shape of it, the thickness of it. The Pixel Fold is essentially a foldable Duo 2, right? And funny enough, a few of the people who've had hands-on time with it have said the same thing. It's more like a Duo than it is like a Galaxy Fold, and that's right up my street. That's almost everything I would want from a foldable. The only thing, of course, it's missing is the automatic multitasking experience you get from having two screens. But I wrote an editorial this week sort of explaining why, at this point, we just have to cut our losses and move on to something that is going to be better. Because, the Duo 2's main selling point is the fact that it does that automatic multitasking. But when the company that makes it fails to support it correctly, there's no alternative. There's no other dual screen phone to move to. Then this Pixel Fold is the closest thing to a successor made by a company that will support it properly with features on a regular basis, timely updates. The Duo 1 and Duo 2 this week got the April 2023 security update. Keep in mind it's May. It's like in the second week of May, and it got the April security update this week. Something has happened at Microsoft where the Duo team has essentially been gutted, and so there just isn't enough people to work on features and timely updates. And at this point, it's not looking good. This may change later in the year. They may get a team back together to be able to work on Android 14, and maybe they will start working on new features. But the older a device gets, the less that makes sense from a business standpoint, right? Like, why would Microsoft suddenly in 6 months decide, oh, actually, let's build out a wicked update for the Surface Duo 2? I really don't see it happening at this point. And with no new hardware on the horizon, we're not expecting a Duo 3 this year. The earliest is next fall, so well over a year away. I don't think I can hang on to the Duo 2 for that long. I'm pretty over it at this point. Especially if we're not getting new software features on a regular basis, what am I hanging on to it for? I've used the phone for a year already, a year and a half now. I've loved my time of it. We had complaints. It was rough at first. It got better. It got to a point where it's good. And if you're somebody who is happy to use a phone for more than 2 years, absolutely keep using the Duo. But for me, as an enthusiast of technology, I'm ready to move on to something else. And if Microsoft had a Duo ready at the end of last year, or even if we knew there was one coming later this year, I probably would have held off on the Pixel Fold, and waited for the next Duo. But since that isn't happening, the only alternative, the closest alternative at this point is this Pixel Fold. And so that's my justification for wanting to move to it. The hardware, the form factor. The only place where it falls down in regards to competing with the Duo is it's not got pen support. But I never use the pen on the Duo anyway. I'm one of those people who just doesn't fit into my workflow, so I'm not missing out on that. Plus, has an amazing camera way better than the Duo 2 did. And I guess we'll see about battery life. The Duo 2's battery life has always surprised me. It's always been okay, like quite good. I'll be interested to see how the Pixel Fold is. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, Google's Tensor chips aren't known for battery life.
Yeah, I know.
My Pixel 7, I've said before, like at the end of the day, I'm around 30% battery life, and I'm not a heavy user. Whereas my S23 Ultra, I'd be like 78%. It would be like I could go 2 days with the S23 Ultra, but the Pixel, it's like I got to charge that thing at night.
Yeah. A few people were commenting on apparently the Pixel Fold. I mean, it opens to 180, but it kind of wants to naturally sit at like 177 degrees, sort of like that. And I was looking at
you got to force it.
Yeah, but I was looking at that and I was like, well, I literally use the Duo like that basically all the time. I never fold my Duo to 180 when I'm using it with two screens. Mine's always slightly curved inward. So I'm probably okay with that.
Yeah, it's a weird
choice.
It's a weird. So the reason they did that was again, Michael Fisher did a great explanation of this. He actually talked to their engineers who gave him a good response, which is they wanted there's like two styles of doing foldables today, right? There's the Samsung way. We have like a gutter in the middle, and you have that's the where you see the crease. And then you have like more like the Lenovo way, and I think some of the other ones where it pulls, as you open it, it pulls the display out, and it helps get rid of that. They got something in between that. And so because of that, there's more tension in the hinge area, which causes it naturally to sit at you said like 175, 178 degrees. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't get why people complain about this, but instead of people complaining about the bezels, which and again, Fisher, went off about this, although he said he wouldn't mind if they were a little bit thinner too.
Yeah.
It's like missing the forest for the trees. It's like this thing is like awesome otherwise. Like that's the last thing that was on my mind was like, oh, but the bezels. It was just like, that's fine. And because of the way they have like thicker top and bottom bezels, the front-facing camera on the inside is in the bezel and not a hole punch in the display. So, but the reason, again, the reason the bezels are that way, he found out, was because of they basically spread out some of the components that go behind the bezel, which is the same thing they did with Duo too. It's not just a design choice, but it's sometimes an engineering choice that they do. So I think it's a great looking device. I'm right. You're right. The form factor, the aspect ratio, the large outer display, and I love the Pixel software and I love the Pixel cameras. Makes it a really compelling device. The no pen support is a bummer, but I'm like you. Even on the S23 Ultra, I use it very rarely, and it's built right in. It's nice to have, but it's not maybe I would use it more on a device like the Pixel Fold. We'll never know. It's thin, and I just like the design. I think it looks great. But yeah, I don't know. That price tag's pretty expensive. So
and it's a Gen 1 product, which means it's gonna be rough at launch. It will probably be rough at launch, right? I don't know whether it be software or hardware issues. We don't know. That remains to be seen. But there will probably be some sort of problem because it's a Gen 1 product, and there always is with Gen 1 products. But, that's the price you pay for being an early adopter enthusiast, right? Like, we all bought Duo 1s. Like, what the hell are we thinking looking back at that? Yep. But we did that, and we suffered through it, so I'm happy to suffer through this as well. And plus, Google will support this thing for way longer than Microsoft was supporting the Duo. True. It will get new features consistently every few months. They do a thing called Pixel feature drops every few months, where the Pixel will get new features, usually from the next version of Android backported to the existing version of Android. But that's still cool. I still think it's really nice that they do that for Pixel customers. Plus all the AI stuff on Pixel phones, that's all here on the Pixel Fold. I think it is going to be a great device for early adopters who have the cash to be able to buy it. But do you have any final thoughts?
I just think I'm really curious about the battery life. How that's going to.
Yeah, that's probably I think that's going to be the weakest point of it. That and maybe repairability. But
and the flip side to the battery life was the charging rate. Pixels always have very slow charging rates.
Yeah.
And that didn't change here. It does have Qi wireless charging, so kudos for them for squeezing that in.
Yeah.
So that's nice. But it is slow Qi charging, and even when you plug it in, it's slow corded charging. Does that matter? To me personally, I don't care that much. That said, I have a couple of Chinese phones that have that 65-watt charging, and that's absurd. Yeah. Like that is bizarre. Like you plug it in, it's like 86%, 87%, 88%. You're like, oh my god. So that thing is I kind of wish but the downside to that too is supposedly that it's going to make the battery really hot, which then long term shortens the life of the battery, which is probably true too. Now, my only concern is if the Pixel Fold can last you the entire day, I don't care if it's slow charging because I'm going to plug it in overnight and just wake up in the morning, right? So that's kind of the thing, but if it doesn't last you all day, then it can be kind of problematic. So we'll have to wait and see. And there's always going to be that honeymoon period, right? That first week or two, you want to use it way more. So that's when you usually say, the battery life is, not that great. But then as you settle in, maybe it's better. So we'll see.
Yeah. Right. I want to take a quick second to thank this week's sponsor, and then we'll get back to the news. What's a game where no one wins? Well, it's the waiting game. When it comes to hiring, you don't wait for great talent to find you. You find them first with Indeed. When you're hiring, you do need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates, and with Instant Match, over 80% of employers can get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data in the United States. One of the things that we think is pretty sweet about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy, because candidates you invite to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to a job than candidates who only see it in search. And they get you one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applicants that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. So join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/WCP. That offer is good for a limited time only. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/WCP. That's Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you, Indeed, for sponsoring. And now let's talk about what is next? I don't remember.
The Asus ROG Ally.
Yes.
Or we talk about how my neighbor is mowing his lawn for the 2nd time this week. What is wrong with him? Anyways, God bless him. Asus, they had a big week with the ROG Ally. If you don't know, this is their handheld gaming deck that looks like a prettier Steam Deck, actually. It's all nice and white and has little purple accents, and they spent a lot of time talking about the design of it and how precise it was and all this kind of jazz. It is going to be available for, there's 2 price tags, $699, which is the has the Ultra processor in it, and then it's $599, which comes out a little bit later, a little bit less in the performance area, but still a good device. It's got a custom AMD Zen 4 APU, 512 gigs of storage with SD expansion. Runs Windows 11 Home, which is the big difference here between it and the Steam Deck, although you can put Windows on Steam Deck if you would like to. 7-inch 1080p LCD touchscreen, but it's 120 hertz, which is really nice. You get a USB Type-C port, PCIe port, which is interesting. That's because this thing could plug into an external GPU running like a 4090 laptop GPU, which they're going to sell as well. So you can really connect this thing up. Because it runs Windows 11, you can connect this up to the external GPU, which then connects up to your monitor and your keyboard, and you can have basically a full-on gaming PC when you come home, which is pretty wild. Weighs 1.3 pounds. Battery life, 8 hours, ASUS estimates. That is being very generous. It looks really good. It's on pre-order right now. You can get the ROG XG Mobile. That's the external GPU. You can get it with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090 laptop GPU. They put that in a little font. If you don't know, the laptop GPU is not as powerful, obviously, as a desktop GPU. It's still pretty darn powerful, though. But you can get that for a nice, cool $2,000. So if you have a lot of money to spend to make a really cool minimalist setup, you're going to be really happy. You can get it Best Buy pre-orders starts May 11th, so you can order it now. And it goes on sale June 13th. Now, some sites already got early review units. Asus did not give us one because Asus is a weird company to work with. I'll just say that. That said, the reviews have been mixed. Battery life, is sort of so this thing has the same size battery as a Steam Deck, which on theory is fine. Outside, the display is better, and it's more powerful. And those two things would tell you that battery life probably won't be as good, and that seems to be the case. Now, this is all relative to the type of game you're playing. If you're doing a 2D platformer, obviously, you could probably, I don't know if you even get 8 hours, but you could probably get 5 hours out of it, And Steam Deck is the same way. If you're going to go play Doom, though, and do some first-person shooters and AAA titles, your battery life, I heard, is like an hour. And that's what some reviews are saying. Now, how much does this matter, right? So I use my Steam Deck, and I'll use the Razer Edge and all that kind of stuff. I use it on the couch, and I have a Type-C connector right there. Sometimes I even play with it plugged in. But sometimes I'll be playing, and I'll get the little notification, hey, your battery's running low, plug it in. So I'm not really using this thing like on a park bench for 5 hours gaming. They're kind of couch devices, in my opinion. You can use them traveling if you're on a train or a plane, but then you get into the whole thing with a lot of these games you got to be online to get them to work. You can do that on a train. They do have Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So, but you can also plug in on a train as well. So I don't know. The battery life thing I get, but I also don't. The way I use my Steam Deck, I don't consider it to be a deal breaker. But I can get for some people, it will be. I think that's always going to be the weak point of this device, with these devices. And the reason I say, got a yawn coming on. Oh boy. Sorry, ran out of oxygen.
Mid-conversation? Wow.
I've never, I must be, I have too much nitrogen in there or something. But this is going to be a series of devices, right? So this AMD APU, GPU, CPU, all that kind of stuff is not custom made for this device. It's custom made for this genre of devices versus Steam Deck. Steam Deck is custom made. That means, and you can take that with, the obviousness here, that other companies are going to make these kinds of devices ranging in different price range, points, different sizes, different specs, and all that kind of stuff. Now, we don't know. I think GPD will probably be there, and you get some of those Chinese manufacturers that do the lower end kind of stuff. But will we see a Dell? Well, probably an Alienware specifically. Will we see a Lenovo? I bet we will. But when, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Asus kind of has an exclusive on the chips for a few months, probably. But we should see other devices coming out for this. The other complaints have been, one, it runs Windows 11, which for some people listening to this podcast, it's going to be a pro. But, Windows 11 on this kind of device, I've had GPDs in the past, and it looks super cool. So as you boot it up, you're like, oh my God, look at it, it's Windows 11 on a little tiny 7-inch screen. It looks awesome. And then you start using it, like, oh, I don't know, this isn't that great. It's kind of cool, though, because if it is pretty powerful. So you can connect it up to an external display with a mouse and keyboard, and you got a full working PC, right? So that's kind of neat. But in terms of using it, Windows 11 is not built for this kind of device. Now, we've been having this discussion internally. Microsoft is in a weird position here. So we have this genre of devices coming out. Will they sell? We don't know. And the question is, should they make a Windows 11 version that's optimized for these devices? Of course, everybody's listening to it. It's like, yeah, of course they should. But then it's like, well, that's going to cost them money, development time, and what's the return of interest on it? Are these devices going to be successful? But it's a chicken egg problem, right? If they came out with a custom version of Windows for these devices that were optimized, for touch input in smaller screens, would they sell more? In which case it returns, or would they not? And so they're kind of they're. It seems like Microsoft's waiting to see if the market takes off, and then if they are, they'll start to support it, which is kind of almost setting it up a little bit for failure, which is a bummer. So Asus has their own custom Crate SE, they call it, software that runs on top, which is more touch friendly. You can access your library and launch games that way. But I've run Crate in the past. It's not amazing software. This is a modification of it. Some of the reviews haven't been very positive about that software. So there's problems with that. And that's what makes Steam Deck kind of cool. The Steam OS, Linux based, but it's built for the device. It's very easy to navigate, find your game library, and just do everything you need to. And that's what makes it really good. Yeah, you can put Windows 11 on it, but then it's a pain in the butt to install stuff and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. What do you think about this device? Do you think? I think they're a little bit early. I give them credit for coming out and just getting ahead of this, but I'm not a huge fan of Asus sometimes as a company in general. I just don't find their stuff premium. So I'm being generous. They tend to deliver great displays, really good performance and value. That's kind of their angle. And Acer is kind of the same way here. You do tend to pay a lot less for their stuff, but I've never really been happy using Asus devices. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. What do you think?
I feel the same way I did about about this that I did about the Steam Deck, which is it's not for me. I'm not a PC gamer really. I prefer playing on a large 65-inch OLED TV on an Xbox with a controller, and that's just how I game. I guess I'm a more casual gamer in that regard, but that's how I prefer. And so this isn't really a device for me. But I do fully agree with what you're saying about how Windows is not great on it. And OEMs really don't have a choice right now. There's not another OS they can really use. I don't know if they can license SteamOS. Can they license SteamOS? If they can,
I don't think so.
I don't see why they wouldn't. There's literally no reason to go Windows 11 other than for the compatibility aspect.
Yeah.
But if you cast your minds back a couple months or so, there was that hackathon project, the Windows gaming handheld mode, that a member or a few people got together for a hackathon and put together what Windows could potentially look like on handhelds. And they did build early concept, proof of concept kind of software there, and they clearly put a lot of thought into it. Sadly, the guy who was working on that said, we were never able to really get this off the ground. But that was before the sort of Steam Deck hype, I think, and certainly before this device. And I think you're right, Dan. I think we are going to see more OEMs venturing into this. I'm pretty sure you've seen some OEMs preview a secret device to you. I don't know if they've been announced yet. We saw LG. Was it LG? No, Logitech with the streaming thing. That's obviously not a Windows device, but it's another bit of evidence that this form factor is something that OEMs are interested in. If Microsoft can nail Windows as an OS for this form factor, then I don't see why this industry won't blow up. The Nintendo Switch proves that people are okay to game like this, and the Steam Deck is another great example of gamers picking up a handheld and using it to play games. Would Windows want to miss out on this? Because what's stopping Valve from licensing the Steam OS stuff? Like, if they did that, that would be a great revenue of income for them.
Valve could easily do that. I don't think they want to. I think they want to keep a lock on their own hardware. And they'd probably argue that the OS is optimized for their own hardware kind of thing. You know, don't forget they have a custom chip and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how much of that would be true. I think a lot of that would be easy to overcome.
I think in that case, I think the pressure would be good for Microsoft, though. Like, if Valve did do that, that may force Microsoft's hand to start better supporting these handhelds. Otherwise, OEMs would go elsewhere and just basically license SteamOS. Because again, why would you license Windows as it currently is on those screen sizes? I think Asus had to build its own UX layer, right? So it basically runs on top of Windows for you to be able to launch games easier, because the Windows desktop is just so poor on small screen sizes. It's another reason why Windows doesn't run on phones, because it sucks on small screens, and these devices have small screens.
There's also a lot of questions of just running an entire operating system like Windows 11 on these. But that's the idea, right? You want to do PC gaming on a device, and it's got to be a PC OS. Fundamentally. Richard Devine, one of our writers, said that all they really should do is just make a custom Xbox app that is just like the launcher, which is like an overlay kind of thing. It just gives you access. Like, I think there's definitely solutions that can do that wouldn't like cost an arm and a leg and a ton of development time, but we'll wait and see. I don't know if I'll get one. It was funny though, because my SO, I was playing Vampire Survivors, and she wanted to. She's like, "Let me do some unlocks for you," because I'm not that great apparently at it. So she started playing it on the Steam Deck, and she's been using her iPhone 13 Pro to play the game. And she's like, "Why does it not look good on a Steam Deck?" And it was like, because it's a 7-inch 1080p display at 60 hertz, and she was on an iPhone 13 Pro, and I'm like, well, for one, it's only like a $499 device versus a $1,200 phone, which is true. I mean, you can't discount that, but it also goes to show you the power of like Apple's hardware really does kind of deliver a better gaming experience. Now, flip that around. The fact is the iPhone can't really do PC gaming, last I checked. You can do cloud gaming, which is not bad, but you can't do anything else, whereas my Steam Deck, I can just load up Doom on it, which is kind of neat. But it goes to show you, too, right, that it'll be interesting to see if Qualcomm, pushes into this area. Could they have a GPU powerful enough to sort of handle this stuff as well? Could they hook up with AMD maybe to power a GPU? Because then, I think an ARM device that's based like this, that's more powerful, gets more battery life, and generates less heat and all that kind of stuff, could be the better secret to this, instead of jamming in an Intel chip or even an AMD processor or anything like that. So it's going to be an interesting area to watch. Like I said, I think it's a growing area. I like it a lot. Like I every night I use the Steam Deck. I just think it's fun. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. So neat stuff. We should be doing a review of it, though. We'll have a lot more coverage of it on the site, so stay tuned for that. And we'll move into our last story now, which is a review that I'll have coming out very soon. It's done. I'm just going to post it. It's the Dell UltraSharp 32 6K monitor with the code U3223KB. Again, that is U3223KB. So this was just announced. Well, this was announced at CES, and then it became available this week. And it is what it sounds like. It is a 32-inch display with 6K resolution on it, which is pretty nice. Now, it ain't cheap. It goes for $3,199, but there is more to this display. Actually, there's a lot more to this display. For one, it has a speaker bar on top, which looks kind of cool. It has dual 14-watt speakers, and lo and behold, they're pretty good speakers. Not a lot of bass to them, But if you switch to like movie mode and you're watching movies, there is actually spatial separation and it works really well. If you set it to voice mode and you're using this for like video conferencing, it's actually really nice because it's just kind of aimed at you and it's pretty good speakers. And in fact, it sometimes would default to this because I have like Razer Nomos, which are really expensive, um, but pretty good speakers. And it's nice because if you don't, you can have a very minimalist setup here. The other cool thing is the camera, which I'm using right now. It's a 4K 8 megapixel HDR camera, Windows Hello built in, and it has a shutter built into it, which is really nifty. The shutter, basically, if I turn the camera off, the shutter just clicks and closes automatically. So anytime you open an app and turn the camera on, the shutter opens, and when you're done, it just closes. And it's really neat because it just snaps. In fact, what's neat is when I go to resume the computer, I'm waking it up. As the computer is waking, the shutter opens, it scans me and closes, and then the screen turns on and I'm logged into Windows. It's that fast. So I don't even get to see the login screen ever, but it just does it automatically. But it's a really good camera. Like I said, it's, I think the best webcam I've ever used. And I've used quite a few. In fact, I still got to review Razors. But it's a really, really good camera. They should just sell on their own. It's got a Thunderbolt port on it for 140 watts pass-through, which is more than enough to charge your laptop. So if you're going to use just a laptop version, like you just plug in your laptop to this, you'll just get that one cord. It'll do the camera, do the audio, and do everything, which is really nice. It does have a built-in KVM switch and auto KVM, which means you can do two displays, two inputs into it. So you can have like a laptop or your Steam Deck plugged into it, and then it could split it down the middle, and you can move the zones around however you want to, but you can have two things at the same time that use a single keyboard and mouse to manipulate stuff, which is kind of fun. Going to the bottom of the device, though, has a pop-out. You press in on the bottom, and a little hub pops down with two USB-C ports and a USB-A, which is great. So it's quick access if you need any of those ports because there's a downstream link that you run to your computer. And you can plug in accessories directly into your monitor. It also has Ethernet built in as well. So it's a whole hub there. So you can plug all your stuff into it, then one cable will plug in your laptop, and you're good to go. As far as the 6K, yeah, it's awesome. It's 220 pixels per inch, I believe, which is pretty amazing. I don't see the pixels, Zach.
That makes me very happy.
Yeah, and the brightness goes up to 500 nits, HDR
That's
600.
Nice.
Yeah, so it gets pretty bright. It is anti-reflective too, so I don't see any glares, which is I love that. Color accuracy through the roof, the gamut, 100% DCI-P3, 100% sRGB. So it's very color accurate. This is geared towards professionals and an office, graphic designers, people who need to teleconference all the time and just really want a great looking display. Yeah, and compared to Apple, all right, so it's a competition. Apple's Pro XDR display, also 32 inches, also 6K, powered by Thunderbolt 3 though. This one takes HDMI and it takes mini DisplayPort, which is a little annoying, or it takes Thunderbolt 4. So if you're going to use the Apple display, it's a little tricky because you got to get a cable. Because if you have a desktop, most GPUs don't have like a Thunderbolt 4 port or a Thunderbolt 3 port for display. So you have to kind of work around that. That display gets way brighter, 600 nits, 1600 nits, sorry, because it's I believe it's mini LED. So their display is better in some ways, but it's also, I think, $1,800 more. You're not going to get this really good webcam. You're not getting speakers built in. You're not getting the hub that pops out in the front, and you're not going to get as many ports. You don't get KVM, so you can have two inputs, picture in picture, picture by picture. You can't do any of that. So I don't know. I think they knocked it out of the park. Now, if you want this monitor, but you don't want to spend as much money, they make a version that's 4K. The camera is not as good, but still a nice camera. And I think that drops down to $1,800 or something like that. So it's way cheaper. If you want 32 inch, but you want even more, they do make an 8K version. Now that one forgoes the speaker and the web camera, so you're just getting a straight 8K monitor with very thin bezels on it. Although that one is like $4,000, I
I
believe.
want
So
that
it's gonna
one.
be, yeah, that one looks pretty wild. But I gotta tell you, having this webcam with Windows Hello built into it as a complete package is real.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the complete
almost it's
package. Like,
almost all in one, like, right? I guess you still got to plug in
yeah,
your own PC, but that all in one nature of having the USB ports, the webcam, and
yeah.
the 6K displays is really neat. But yeah, I didn't know they do an 8K one. Oh my god, that must be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, 8K is I think 280 PPI or 206.
Oh,
Yeah, I
it's
think it's
so
280.
nice. That's so nice.
Yeah, I'm curious if you really see the difference.
I don't think you
I don't know.
past 220. I think you'll be really. You'd have to get really close to start seeing the difference at that point. But
Yeah,
yeah, $4,000 is a lot of money for. What is that? Who is that aimed at? I guess creative professionals.
graphics
Right?
professionals, people
Yeah.
video editing. Yeah, obviously these aren't gaming displays. They can only do 60
No.
hertz, so um, this is easily the best non-gaming monitor I've ever used my entire life. I still got to review. I have the photos. I got to write up the Dell 43 inch, which I was using for the last couple of weeks. That thing's absurdly huge, and it's
Yeah. What
fun
was
to
it like
use.
going back to the 32-inch after using a 43
Well, at
inch?
first it was hard. It was like, oh, this is way too small.
Yeah.
But now after a couple of days, I love it. I'm back on a 32. Your brain adjusts to it quickly. The 43 it's almost it is definitely
Too
comically
big.
large.
Well,
What's
you've got
weird
to move
about it
your
is when
neck
you're
a
on
lot, like
yeah,
to
and when
see
you're on a
things. Yeah.
video call, that's what I'm saying. Like when you're on a video call and you're looking at the screen, it looks like you're looking at your walls, like a fly in the wall.
Yes, it
'Cause
does. Yes, you're right. When you was on calls with us, I was like, "What are you looking at?"
yeah, because you got to look
Yeah.
all over because it's like, oh, the corner's over there. So
Where was
it
your
looks
webcam?
strange.
Was it on top of the monitor?
There was no webcam. Yeah,
So,
but
yeah. So where did you have yours?
yeah, on top of the monitor, which yeah,
Yeah,
again, it's
interesting.
like basically looking down at you.
Yeah,
This monitor also, is adjustable vertically. I got to get the measurement to put it in the review, but it goes down very low, which is nice because you can have it basically eye level and all
yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of stuff. But yeah, that's I'll give the the name again for those interested. That's the Dell Ultra Sharp 32 6K U3223KB. It is now available 31.99 price tag. If you got the money though, this is a cool display, man. Like I don't know how I can go back to anything else. The only thing that sucks is like gaming, right? If I want to game on it, yeah, I can game
Yeah.
on it, of course, I can, but you're gonna be locked at 60 hertz. But my time gaming on this PC versus the time working is like 9 to 1, or for reverse. So I mean, I get much more benefit here from the 6K. But oh yeah, and the camera does AI tracking and all this kind of stuff, which is you probably see on the call here. It's adjusting automatically. They can zoom in and it has all these settings. And it's all cool stuff though. Yeah, Dell, great job. So it's gonna get like a 5 out of 5 from me. If you can afford it, go
I
get
hope
it.
this
But there
marks
we
the
go.
beginning of more monitor makers doing high res monitors because we've been at 4K for such a long time, and 4K is fine if you're on like the PPI patrol police like me. 4K is fine up until about 25 inches, and then it starts creeping into I can start seeing the pixels now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 16 by 9 monitors. This is so 27-inch 4K. I think is maybe that's 27. It's definitely the last where 4K makes sense. Then you need to move up to 5K and for that sort of size, and then 6K for 32 inches, and I guess 8K for 43 inches. I don't know, but I read because so far there aren't many. Apple do
Right.
5K displays and 6K.
LG has a 5K.
Yes, LG has a 5K, which they worked in partnership with Apple with at first. I don't know if it works on PCs now, but it used to be an Apple-only thing. But Samsung is just announced, or they announced in CES, a 5K 28-inch monitor as well. So we're finally starting to see OEMs adopting higher resolutions, which I'm really excited to see. And so with Dell now doing this 6K, Dell, I'd like to see you do a 5K 27-inch. That'd be nice. That doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I'm glad to see it. I'm glad that we're doing this now.
I should also mention this has IPS black technology, which is an LG tech. It does what it says. It makes blacks. It gives you a higher contrast. It's
Yeah.
not AMOLED level, which to be honest, I'm glad it's not. AMOLED looks amazing, but It gets a little too intense if you're staring at the screen all day, but it does give you deeper blacks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, awesome monitor. Definitely, I don't see anything touching this thing. And just like I said, the webcam is just, geez, like amazing. So there you go. All right, that does it for the podcast. Well, I guess the thing of the week, Zach, do you have a thing of the week? Probably
I do not
right?
Have a thing of the week, sadly.
All right. I guess mine is this monitor. So pretty happy with it. But there you go. We'll do Q&A with the audience now. So if you guys have those questions, you can drop them off in the chat. If you're listening to this recorded, of course. Oh, actually, we didn't talk about Blue Sky. Let's do that really quickly.
Okay, that could be our thing of the week, Blue Sky.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing of the week. Yeah. So for those who don't know, well, I did get on Blue Sky. Yeah, that is a flex. Getting on Blue Sky is the new verified check mark, the actual verified, not blue subscription. But yeah, so Blue Sky was started at Twitter in 2019 as a concept for a new decentralized social network. The idea behind it is you create like a profile, and then that profile can actually travel with you to other types of social networks using what's called the AT protocol. And now this is just beginning. Blue Sky now is an early release. It's invite only. I believe it's around only 60,000 people are on it at this moment. Don't ask me for an invite code. I was telling Zach, I believe the rumor is you get one invite every 2 weeks, and they've even kind of cut back on that recently as they want to roll out more features. It is a Twitter clone, effectively. I mean, it looks like Twitter, feels like Twitter. It doesn't have as many features, though, as Twitter. But the idea here is like, well, right now, like I'm on the Blue Sky server, but you can go and create your own server. Like we could create a Windows Central server, and then Zach and myself will all have, like, it'll be Daniel Rubino at Windows Central, as the address basically. And then, that's the kind of verification system in a way where you can everybody would have that specific server. But yeah, the idea is, a company doesn't have full control over the moderation and everything, how it's operated. It's kind of like Mastodon, although Mastodon, I would argue, is a little bit more tricky in terms of setting it up. It's a little more confusing. Blue Sky is definitely way easier to set up. It's very intuitive and it's very easy at this time. It's kind of fun being on there. It's granted, you're getting a lot of people on there who are ex-Twitter users who are disgruntled over, the way things have been going over the last few months. So there's a lot of S-posting. I won't swear there, but yeah, there's a lot of people just having the piss, as the British would say. And it's pretty funny, actually, some of the things that people are posting. So it's a lot more entertainment, a lot more entertaining, a lot less serious, a lot less politics going on there as well. Whereas, I feel like the funny thing about Twitter is like everybody talks about politics on Twitter, or that's like always the story. But like, people use Twitter for other things. They use it for movies. They use it for sports. They use it for tech talk, right? It's not like the actual people use it for politics. It's actually a small percentage of users. But for some reason, and of course, Elon Musk, I just don't like how Musk is like dominating the platform himself. I feel like CEO shouldn't be the story of any company. I feel like the CEO should just be the CEO.
Enough, he did just announce that he's hired a CEO to take over. I can't remember her name now. She's somebody.
She's an NBC executive in charge of ads or something like that. Yeah, they just had like an ad meetings thing recently, and Twitter was there, and she was the moderator. So it's like, it's just kind of all.
I mean, he's basically put somebody in charge who is in a position to at least try and turn Twitter into a business that makes money. Whether or not she's successful,
but he's still running all the other parts of Twitter.
Yeah, he's still running product dedesign and development. He's still the guy who makes all the features, and he's still going to make decisions.
Let's be honest. So. Yeah, he's gonna be he's gonna be able to override the CEO, right?
She might give him some great advice, and he'll be like, "No, thanks. I don't want to hear it."
Yeah, there's also some like concern. Well, it could be setting her up to fail, right, and be the fall guy for because he owes a lot of money. He paid $44 billion for it using other people's money, so he's heavily leveraged against Tesla. So in order to pay back those loans, he might have to sell Tesla stock, which if he sells too much, he loses control of Tesla. He internally, I guess, valuated the company at $20 billion now. So imagine just shaving off $22 billion from a company you just bought. I mean, he way overpaid for Twitter. It was just
Absolutely
absurd. And he called their bluff and got forced to buy it, which is hilarious. I don't know. Blue Sky, though, I think is definitely, I like decentralized networks. I think it's, it's one thing. It's, people are worried like, oh, Facebook and Google, they control our information and big tech this. And it's like, all right, there's some truth to that. I don't see how it's better with Elon Musk, though. It just gets into the fallacy of like the benevolent dictator, right? It's like, imagine we had like Hitler, but he was good, And it's like, would you want that? Actually, a lot of people do want that. If you question people hard enough, a lot of people are like, yeah, I want like an authoritarian leader, so long as they're on my side,
right.
And it's good right up until the point where it's not. And like, I don't like the idea of like having not only a single company controlling my data or something like on Twitter, but the idea of like even one person behind that who is really the driving force is even more centralized. And so I think the future of this stuff is decentralized. And I think there are definitely ways around that. This idea that you create just one profile and that it can follow you to all your social networks is, I think, way more of an interesting one than the current centralized systems that are owned by companies that set up algorithms, that advertising is the primary method of making money. Like, there, and that's why Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, started this. Was he was like, afterwards he had Twitter, he's like, you know what, if I had to do this over again, I would do it differently with this newer technology. And that's exactly what he's doing. That's what Blue Sky is. It's like, all right, if I could redo Twitter today, knowing what I know, what would I change? This is what Blue Sky is. Now, will Blue Sky take over in Twitter? It's obviously way too early to say. I definitely say it has more legs than Mastodon. I think it'll be more accepted that way. It's more interesting. We'll have to see what rolls out. What could happen, I think, is Twitter could just turn into basically Truth Social 2.0. So you just have a lot of right-wing people on there, and the Elon Musk fan club who pay $8 a month to be a fan of his will just be there. Then people, just the rest of us, will move to Blue Sky, and you'll just have this more segregated kind of social experience, which is not good either, but I think that's something that could very likely happen. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this stuff?
No, I'll just remind everybody that social networks have died. MySpace, Bebo, those are the that come to mind.
Yeah.
So people who say Twitter's too big to fail, nothing's
too
big to fail.
That's so not true.
Yeah, nothing's too
and comparatively speaking, Facebook is like 5 times the size of Twitter. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Twitter is pretty small comparatively, but Twitter, like Pixel, like Surface, garners more attention than its actual power. And I think it's funny now that people are like, Twitter's awesome, it's going to save civilization. Last year, Twitter's not real life. That's what everybody used to say. Remember that? Twitter's not real life. Get off the internet. Now all of a sudden Twitter's like, oh, it's going to save civilization. It's like, dude, shut up. It's not that important. Like, I don't know. People take this stuff way too seriously, but we'll see what happens. But Blue Sky, stick a tack in it. We'll revisit it in coming weeks. There are apps for Android and iOS now, so it's getting there. You can create. I use it as a PWA on desktop. It's a great PWA there. So, it's got all that same kind of stuff. But there's no algorithm, which is nice. There's no ads. There's nothing being forced upon you. There is trending stuff that's just based on popularity. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. So. But there you go. All right, now we'll wrap up the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino. And if you're on Blue Sky, you can follow me at Daniel Rubino, all one word, .bsky.social. I only got 38 people following me right now. So it's now, and I'm following 43, so that ratio is off. But and you can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN, and hopefully we'll get him on Blue Sky soon. Actually, Jez Corden's on Blue Sky as well. So if you just search for Jez Corden, you can find him and add him as a friend, although I don't think he's very active at this moment. But there you go. We do record this every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. You can join in there, watch previous episodes and all that kind of stuff. Other than that, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Zach, did you do timestamps?
No, but I'll have to go back. I forgot.
You just need to stick. We both got to stick Post-its onto the
I
computer that
know.
just says
It's
timestamps.
so annoying. I'm now recording as well.
What up, Kitty?
So yes, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. We'll try our best to answer. Sarah mentioned that she's currently using a 32-inch 1080p VA monitor. That makes me sad. That makes me really sad.
Let's start a GoFundMe.
My question, suggest a monitor. I really want to upgrade. I want a non-gamer monitor. I want a non-gamer looking monitor that is white, but with gaming monitor specs. Oh, that's a big ask.
LG makes white monitors. LG and Alienware both make white monitors that have gaming specs.
Are they?
The Alienware looks definitely. Alienwares will have a lot more flamboyance to it. LGs are pretty straight up though. They're just plain white. They don't do like OLED or chroma RGB lighting and all that kind of stuff. So I'd look at LG. LG makes a pretty sick. Their new monitors that they announced at CES include AMOLED gaming displays that can do 120 hertz, which is pretty intense looking. I will say that. That's what I would get.
Which Surface Pro is better for Zoom meetings? Pro 8 or Pro 9 in terms of the camera quality and processor capability? The Pro 8 being much cheaper?
Pro
and
9.
Does the i5 8GB suffice for use for this use? So I would go for the Pro 9. Not that the camera's much better, but the processor is. You'll get way more performance out of the 12th gen Intel in the Pro 9. And the i5 8GB, if you're just using it for for Zoom meetings and web browsing, yes, I think you'll be alright with an i5 with 8 gigs. I'd usually recommend upgrading to 16 gigs if you'd like to multitask. But if you're just doing a Zoom meeting on its own and then closing out of Zoom and then opening a browser and then doing stuff in the browser, that's fine. But if you need to have different, loads of browser tabs open while you're in meetings, maybe moving to the 16 gig model makes more sense.
What was it? Oh, Ryan has a 43-inch Sony 4K television. I'm pretty pleased with it. Yeah, but you know what it's not? 6K. Someone else says, Nigel says, BenQ monitors are white and in the back. Yeah, BenQ makes good stuff. We haven't reviewed a ton of them, but they're a good brand.
Where are the other parts of Windows are shipped, as the first two were great? Thank you. I'm working on them slowly. The first two didn't do too well in regards to traffic, so there's less priority for us to do them. But I do have some other topics that I do want to explore that will be part of it in the future. The next one I think will probably be a deep dive into Project Neon, if you remember, the Fluent Design System, but the original vision for it. There's quite a bit of it that Microsoft never publicly released because it was so not gonna happen. But yeah, that's probably would be the next one. And then at one point I also want to do a chapter on Andromeda's continuum, or seashell continuum, I guess. The sort of vision they had for what continuum might be like on a Windows core device.
Ryan also says he took my advice. He got the Surface Pro 9 to replace his Book 3 13.5. The sound of the fan never sounded so good. Yeah, Pro 9's fun. It's a good device. There's something nice about always opening a Surface Pro. That's just kind of cool looking. Did he answer the question? Is Microsoft working on Windows 12 at the minute? They stopped at 3 p.m. So no, not at this minute. But a couple minutes ago, yeah, they were working on Windows 12.
Yes, they are working on... Windows 12 may not be accurate, but yes, they're working on the next sort of major version of the Windows platform currently. Will there be a core PC version of Windows 12 this fall? No, there will not be a core PC version of Windows 12 this fall. Next fall, maybe, but not this fall. The core PC aspect to things is interesting because I don't know how Microsoft plans to market that as well. Because obviously core PC will have to coexist alongside existing desktop. Will they both be Windows 12, or will Windows 12 be desktop and Core PC be Windows 12X? I don't know. Like, we'll have to wait and see how they brand it. Gus thinks they'll call it Microsoft OS 12, which would be hilarious. You should call it Surface OS. I don't angle the OEMs.
Zach, have you watched Succession yet?
No, I have not.
Go watch Succession.
Watch Ted Lasso.
Actually, I will be probably pretty soon. I'm about to cancel like Hulu, Disney, and ESPN and all that jazz, and just go in on Apple TV for a while.
Apple TV is really good. I hate how good Apple TV is. It makes me so sad. But actually, the Ted Lasso thing. I'm not sure if it's going to be your kind of show. It's a very
don't say it. It's happy and wholesome.
It is.
Positive.
I mean, it kind of is. It tackles some like serious
everything
things,
you're not.
Yeah, but it is a kind of happy show. That and what's it called?
Yeah, but isn't the creator like he was behind Scrubs?
I believe so,
I was a huge fan of Scrubs.
Okay, you might like it then, because it is like there's drama and stuff. But okay, I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it in that case. There's that show and there's the other one with Harrison Ford in it. Oh, on Apple TV. What's it called?
Shrinking or something like that?
Shrinking, yes. That is also amazing, and you should watch that as well. That might actually be better than Ted Lasso. It's just one of those shows that nobody realized yet is really good. But yeah, I loved that show. Will there be an interface change in Windows 12? That is the current rumor. We've seen some leaks to suggest that, yes, they're working on an updated UX of some kind. Is Microsoft working on their silicon? There have been rumors saying they are hiring people to build the Microsoft Silicon team. So the Microsoft Silicon team and Microsoft Silicon in general isn't new. Microsoft has built its own chips for many years. They're just not end user facing chips. Microsoft, to my knowledge, builds server chips, or has been wanting to build server chips. And they're now also looking at building AI chips. So these will be deployed in Azure servers and whatnot. I do not believe there's an active plan to deliver an end user chip in like a Surface. I don't think you'll ever see a Surface with a Microsoft made or Microsoft designed processor from the ground up. You will see obviously things like the Microsoft SQ3 and SQ4, which is a chip, Microsoft branded chip, but designed, worked in partnership with Qualcomm. And I think the reason for that, it primarily is Microsoft really doesn't want to compete with its own silicon partners. And it's not like Microsoft could do their job better. Microsoft hasn't got magic to be able to come out with a chip that beats Intel and AMD. Intel and AMD are doing quite good these days. Apple's already given them the wake-up call they needed. And so we're already getting some great chips coming out of Intel and AMD in the high end. And that's only got to improve. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to see end-user silicon from Microsoft. Because remember, you've got that team factors in more than just a sort of main processor. It factors in co-processors as well, such as NPUs. I think the HoloLens 2 has a Microsoft-made processor, right? It has it's powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855, but there's a co-processor in there that handles something, which I don't remember. And that was, I believe, designed by Microsoft. So that's the kind of chips they work on. Is it just me, or because of widgets returning for the new Windows 11 builds, that we are going back to 2009 all over again when Windows 7 came out? Windows Vista and Windows 7 had a thing called gadgets, but nobody really used them. And also, the world has changed significantly since 2006 when Vista launched. The internet is a lot more... the world is a lot more internet connected now, and the idea of glanceable information that's powered by the web is actually a lot more viable today than it was 15 years ago. So yeah, I think it makes more sense these days than it did in the Vista 7 days, personally. If they are working on Windows 12, will there be a new build of it? At some point, yes. Probably not this year. Okay, final call for questions. Then we're going to head off. I'm also curious as to when / if the European Union will make a decision on the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger. Rumor has it they will be next week, and they decide what to do. At this point, I don't think it matters until the CMA proves it. Jez Corden, our gaming editor, is convinced that the CMA will not re-evaluate their decision. Which, if they don't, then I mean, what does Microsoft do at that point? Do they abandon the whole deal? Or will they go ahead with the deal and avoid the UK as a market? That would be really interesting. What's worth more to them, the UK market or the deal? What changes should we expect to see with the Surface Laptop 6? Intel 30th Gen, maybe an updated design. I have heard that they actually do have an updated design internally that they've been testing. I don't know if it'll be ready for Laptop 6, but let's kind of assume it is, which has thinner bezels, and I believe the design of it's slightly different. The keyboard deck, that is. You said that the UI features of the new OS come out nearer to launch. When do you think we'll start to see Windows 12 or whatever UI features? My guess would be they'll do it how they did Windows 11. It will basically be Windows 11 looks like Windows 10 up until Windows 11 was announced, and then they will drop to build with all the Windows 11 UI. That's probably what will happen with Windows air quotes 12. It will look like Windows 11 and continue to look like Windows 11 up until they have an event where they're like, hey, here's Windows 12, and then next week you get a build that looks like Windows 12. All right, with that, I think it's time to head off. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.